Good afternoon. This is Media Center, Ukraine, Odessa. We had to postpone a bit the briefing because of the air raid alert, and we're upset, but we cannot guarantee that this will not happen again in the future. Our speaker is Anatoliy Izotov, restoration architect, and now we are going to discuss with him how difficult it will be to restore Odessa architectural monuments damaged by missile attacks, and we have now 25 of such landmarks and houses. Anatoly, have you seen the damages and how severe they are? As a result, I saw the results of the shelling. I also saw the pictures that have been provided by the employees of the House of Scientists, and we can speak about different levels of damages to different buildings, and the cathedral was heavily damaged. So this is not a problem to restore for example, the cathedral, the upper part. This is the question about other places. And should we take conservation and stabilization activities now? Because we cannot guarantee that Russia will not attack us tomorrow. Because we understand that if they have already started the process, we have no guarantees that they are going to stop now. And Odessa statues, UNESCO statues, tourist statues cannot protect the city from the shelling. Unfortunately, we should expect the continuation of the shelling, and this is information provided by the military, and there is general understanding. As for restoration, we should speak here about conservation first. And there are some cases when the state where the funds or the state are not ready to allocate money for restoration because the territories are constantly shelled. So we should better speak now about stabilization and conservation of such buildings. As for preventive measures to protect other facilities, should be taken into consideration, because we can expect the continuation of shelling and the destruction of other places and venues. And actually, we should have started this work long ago, not only after the latest shelling. What are the most severe damages to the houses, to the buildings, venues, to your opinion? As for the House of Scientists, and I know that in the House of Sciences, all levels have been damaged. So we should examine everything. So we cannot speak about some global damages. So there are some inevitable losses, inevitable damages, because something that was created by old masters should be built from the scratch. The cathedral has the status of the monument of history. As for other objects, they are landmarks, and they can be restored and they can be preserved. But, for example, when it comes to House of Scientists, there were a lot of authentic, original items stored there, because it was one of the rare cases when the origins were preserved, but they are now damaged as a result of shelling. The House of Scientists is an architectural monument. They have some items that they exhibited. They have the historical value, like paintings, like decoration, and now all these items should be restored. As for some global damages, basing on the information I have, basing on what I've seen, the most heavily damaged was the cathedral, but this cathedral was rebuilt in modern times, and we can rebuild it again. But now the question is, should we do this now? Should we restore these landmarks now? Or should we just protect them, stabilize them, to prevent further destruction of these venues? And also the conservation, and then we should wait for the victory now. And in this context, we have some collapse here now. On the one hand, they say that we cannot spend money to preserve landmarks. So there are some things that could wait. But the same attitude could be for the landmarks, because there should be bidding, or we should get money from the international funds. And the state should develop some terms of reference for such projects. And so this will be interesting, because not only Odessa has been damaged by Russian shelling. There are a lot of venues, facilities, and landmarks all over Ukraine that have been already damaged, and the state should take measures according to the constitution. But due to the fact that now we say that we should spend all money for the front line, for our military, to approximate our victory, and now the question is what should we do with the damaged locations? So we should understand that every word can affect the state policy. In our case, when it comes to the protection and preservation of the cultural heritage, we have questions from our journalists. Good afternoon, Ukrainian Radio Odessa, Irina Sichkovska. We know that during the latest shelling, around 25, 29 objects or buildings have been damaged. But in mass media, we see information about the cathedral and about the House of Scientists only. What is the condition of other buildings? Should we take immediate measures not to restore, but to conserve them, the house of Papudova, etc.? Do you have such information? As for the other objects, so media keep talking about cathedral and House of Sciences because these are the most popular, the most well-known. I do not have information about other objects. So I need to get materials about those objects, meaning the some general. So when it comes to some general pictures of these buildings, they do not provide all details. I cannot say anything with regard thereof. And but there, yes, in general, generally 25 locations, maybe 29, as you say. But to assess the situation, we should be there on the spot. And the damaged facilities, the damaged objects should be at least conserved and should be stabilized. So we need just different levels of such conservation. For example, we can just close the windows, the destroyed windows. In some cases, we need to strengthen the construction, the structure of those buildings. But every damaged object should we should take measures with regard to every object. But to assess the situation, we just need to be there on the spot to provide more detailed information about what measures should be taken. And I have not seen them by myself, that's why I cannot provide any information. I have two clarification questions here. The first one is who should assess the damage and also the measures that should be taken as a follow-up. And the second question, who's responsible for conservation? It should be the city or some architectural institutions. Could you provide this information? Thank you. I'm not sure that architectural institutions have a license for such work. Also, I know that they quite often participate in different projects, but Odesa Construction Academy could at least assess the situation because they have good experts there who could examine the objects and could provide their conclusion with regard to follow-up measures. As for the work that should be done further on, restoration, construction, etc. We have the document that envisages a simplified procedure for the objects damaged by the Russian Federation as a result of Russia's aggression. And the algorithm that we used to have before the full-scale invasion for the peaceful times. And now we have the new procedure defining clear algorithm with regard to restoration and other activities. As for funds, the question of money could become disputable because the work could be done basing on bidding on tenders. And now during the during the wartime, we cannot announce such bidding, and we should look for a philanthropist who will be ready to spend money to restore it. And now it will be an interesting situation. We will see if the state has or the city has a stabilization fund for such architectural work to preserve landmark without involving additional money or without relocating funds. But we should remember about the latest statement of the president about improper budget spending. And if no money will be allocated for conservation restoration of the damaged objects, there will be the question on philanthropists, of donors. But who will be responsible for the work? Because here we'll also need experts. If it's just shielding windows, this is not a problem. But if more in-depth work is needed, then we will need some experts, some expert organizations that has capacity for such work. Anatoly, we have two questions from journalists watching us online. The first question, who should order the reconstruction projects, the state or the local authorities, for example, the Heritage Preservation Department or condominiums of houses? This is the first question. The second question, what are the conditions to believe that the landmark could not be restored, and how much time is needed for the facility, for the object to get the status? As for the first question, who should develop the project, the terms of reference? As for the terms of reference for the designs, the order could be at the local level, local departments or directorates could order the development of these documents. It could be at the department and municipal council or in regional council. The state could not order, will not order the development of the terms of reference. As for the state of an object, when it cannot be recovered, in any case, the landmark, the architectural monument, is deemed lost if it's completely damaged. If there is still something that could be restored, then this is still a cultural heritage object, but the scale of work is different in this case. So nothing has been completely damaged in our case. There are still some parts of buildings preserved. They still have some values. So we do not have some completely lost object. So still there are some parts of the building, of the object is still considered as an architectural or historical monument. So if it is completely destroyed, then the object is excluded from the relevant register. And in our case, all facilities, all objects damaged by the Russian Federation should be documented, and all the expenses to restore such objects should be added to the claims with regard to financial compensation from Russia. And if there is only one building, then we could not do this. But when it comes to the general country, the information is accumulated with regard to losses, economical and cultural losses when it comes to cultural heritage. No one will say that the facility cannot be restored. We should speak here about the different scale and level of the work needed to conserve and then to restore, reconstruct this facility. If the facility, the object is completely lost, if there is just even just a basement, if it's leveled, then we can discuss only the expenses needed to restore the damaged object. And we have this special system with regard to landmark for further claims against this northern bear, meaning our northern neighbor, Russia. But we just speak about a different amount of money needed to preserve these objects. We have a question from the journalists in the hall. Michael Vasura, Newsweek, Journal, United States. If I understand correctly, there are 25 damaged buildings. So was it during overnight and Saturday, or was it during the week? Is it general amount? And before last week, how many damaged objects there were in Odessa? As for the information that we can see in media, and there were some different parts of damaged elements. And, for example, destroyed windows after previous shellings. So we did not see such significant damages comparing to the latest shelling in Odessa when the objects in question were damaged. And when it comes to architectural historical monuments, we should say and they could be damaged, but actually they cannot be seen in, for example, mass media, and because for example, in Mariupol, 100 cultural heritage monuments were lost. But who calculated not monuments, but the different levels, the valuable objects, background objects, and other type of object buildings who were lost in Mariupol? Because when it comes to historical monuments, we should speak about historical area. And usually there could be around 800 objects around the architectural monument to be fully preserved to exist. Because when we say that we lose one architectural monument, there are other historical objects surrounding it that were not included in the register, but they could have the same value as the architectural monument, damaged or completely destroyed. And we understand that not only architectural monuments have been damaged over this time, but other valuable facilities, objects, or venues who do not have the status. I don't think that in Odessa we have the record of these objects, and we only discuss those objects who have legal status of the national or local importance. And to this short question, just to clarify the situation. If we speak about the area of Odessa, which is protected by UNESCO, how many strikes have been there starting from the 24th of February, and how many of missile strikes were last Saturday? Only a military could provide such data. Who could just clarify this information together with self-government bodies? But I think that this is sensitive information. Anna Mahler and others do not recommend to provide this information to the public. I am not an authorized person to tell about missile strikes, not only in Odessa, but in other parts of our country. And I cannot answer the question. I wish you should ask this question to the military. But these are the special bodies dealing with the heritage of our country who have this information. Thank you very much. We need to stop here now. The next briefing will be 2:30. Please stay tuned.